Last to discuss his book, How Trump Stole 2020, and talk about the voter cross-check purges that are happening all across the United States. And we are so excited to have him. This is the AM Report. All right. Good to see you, Greg. Welcome to the program. It's very nice to have you. Greg Palast, you're the author of How Trump Stole 2020, and you've been doing a lot of investigative journalism for many years and decades. And I first came to learn your work in 2016 when I started reading about these voter purges that were happening all across the United States. Would you talk to us a little bit about the interstate voter cross-check system, and how is it still something that's affecting our elections, even though people have been ringing the alarms about this?
Well, two things. One, we pretty much defeated this one system of stealing votes that was created in 2016. The Republican Secretary of State of Kansas, his name is Chris Kobach of Kansas. If you can't remember that name, just think KKK. You know what? Believe it or not, we mostly defeated that. It's barely used in most states because we exposed it. Greg Palast, our investigative team. I was writing in Rolling Stone magazine exposing that program. But now, this very week, I've just issued a report with the ACLU called Georgia Voter Purge Errors, which sounds basically this is the new trick that they've used to replace cross-checks. So this is our problem, whack-a-mole. As I explained in How Trump Stole 2020, you get rid of one method of eliminating voters that you don't like, and you have another one. Let me talk about what we're talking about. In the last 2 years of record keeping, according to the U.S. government records, 16.7 million people have been removed from the voter rolls, canceled, purged is the official word. And about half of those, 5, 6, 7, 8 million people, should never have been removed from the voter rolls. So who are these folks? Voters of color, young people. What we found in this week, the report issued by the ACLU, from my organization, the Palast Investigative Fund. And go to gregpalast.com. You can get the report. We found that, are you ready, Alex? 198,351 voters in Georgia were removed from the voter rolls, supposedly because they left Georgia, they left Atlanta, they left their city, they left their state, and supposedly they moved. They didn't. Let me repeat that. 198,351. How am I so sure of the exact number? The answer is I hired the Postal Service. The U.S. Postal Service has licensees. You can't remove voters from the voter rolls in America under federal law without contacting the post office to see if people have in fact moved. The state of Georgia clearly did not. We hired the experts, the licensees for the post office, and also the experts in voter verification. By the way, they come from Amazon and eBay and those organizations. They know where you live. And we found that it was completely phony. In fact, I even went down to Atlanta in the 2018 election and saw this where they first tried this out, removing voters that they said had moved. I was at the polling station, Raheem Shabazz, and a Latina named Ashley Jones, several voters being thrown out of one voting station in Atlanta, all voters of color, including the 92-year-old cousin of Martin Luther King. 92 years old, she'd been voting in the same place for 50 years. They threw her out. They said that she had left Atlanta. No, she didn't. I went to her house that she'd lived in nearly a century with photos of Martin Luther King at her house because he would come there for dinner after Sunday church. These are the people they're throwing off the rolls. And it began in Georgia, but it's gone to Ohio and Virginia and several in Michigan. They're trying to impose it in Wisconsin. All the swing states, we're seeing hundreds of thousands of voters of color, young people, thrown off the voter rolls, which you can fix, by the way. There's a way to get to deal with this problem.
So I think that's all pretty wild, and I think most people just aren't aware that this is going on. And as this conversation is happening, we have a lot of Trump 2020 commenters with very odd screen names and very obscure numbers at the end. And I always like to say, like, the Russian interference is very alive and well right here on Hap News. And, I think one of the problems in 2016 was that people thought that the discrepancy between the exit poll data and the actual digital vote counts in states like Wisconsin, Florida, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, states that Hillary Clinton won in the exit polls, but ended up losing in the computerized counts, was that people thought that this was because of on our side, that this was because of the Russians, when really what we know is because of these voter purges, people were showing up on election day and they were casting ballots that weren't being counted, and that would account for that discrepancy. So how can Democrats who are concerned about the title of your book and this very pervasive problem of deep voter suppression that happens all across the United States, how do they solve this problem with the 57, 53, I don't even know anymore, coronavirus has taken away my gauge of time, but how do we solve that problem with just literally less than 2 months to go?
Number one, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, I want you to be able to vote if you're an American citizen. So the first thing you do if you're in Georgia or in Ohio, Florida, several other states, go to gregpalast.com. There's a click through to a site called SaveMyVote2020.org. SaveMyVote2020.org. And in Georgia, we're going to add other states. You can see if you are one of the people who've been illegally tossed off the voter rolls. Now, the ACLU, the Palast Investigative Fund is working with the ACLU to try to force the Republican officials of Georgia to return people to the voter rolls. But you can't do it I'm going to be honest, you can't do it by lawsuits. There's not enough time. So you're going to have to check your own registration. And every person listening to this broadcast, don't end up like Martin Luther King's cousin. She thought, I don't have to check my registration. I've been voting at the same place for 50 years. And they got rid of her. If you go to gregpalast.com, in fact, tomorrow night, you'll see the Stacey Abrams film about, they're releasing it about vote suppression in Georgia, based a lot on our work. But it's not just Georgia. So if you're in Ohio, if you're in Virginia, if you're in Maryland, if you are in Wisconsin or Michigan, please check your registration. And you do that by going to the Office of the Board of Elections or Secretary of State or vote.org. And if you're missing, re-register. By the way, I checked in California. We're all supposed to be cool surfer dudes. Greg Palast had been removed from the voter rolls of California. I re-registered online. You can do it now. Most states still have registration till October 5. But this is the only way. Look, I'm going to be blunt. I know you mentioned the name of my book is called How Trump Stole 2020. It's not a prediction, Alex. It's a warning. That is all these people have already been removed from the voter rolls by the millions in swing states. So we can steal it back. That is, we can bust the burglary. I don't want to steal votes, but I do want you to vote. Check your registration. That's the biggest way that they remove people. And here's the big problem, Alex. If you want to vote by mail, you can't mail in your ballot if it's not mailed out to you. And if you're not on the vote rolls, you ain't getting no ballot. Oops. Did I lose you, Alex? I hope not.
Well, thank you so much. It seems like we're having a little bit of a breaky feed on my end, but we're catching everything you're saying. And, I think with just a few days left before this election, I think everything that you're talking about is such important work. Where, Greg, can people find you and support your work and buy your book?
Okay, number one, well, you can buy the book at any place that they sell the usual stuff, and if you shoplift it, I get the same royalty, so no problem. But it all goes to the Palace Investigative Fund. Get my reports at gregpalace.com. And probably the most important thing you can get at gregpalace.com is it's not just the book, but the back of the book and on my site is something that I call the ballot condom for safe voting. No, Alex, you don't slip it over your ballot, but you do follow the 7 steps to make sure that you get your ballot, that you're registered, and that it counts. Very, very important stuff, including checking your registration. If you're going to mail in your ballot, do it super early. 1 in 10 people never get their ballots or don't get them on time. Don't lose your vote because you just didn't get a ballot. And if you can, if you're healthy enough, I'm telling you the safest thing to do, since 1 in 5 mail-in ballots is never counted because of challenges, go in and vote early. Midweek, no one's there. It's in fact, you'll have fewer people there than in the post office. And if you're going to mail in your ballot, you have to take it into a voting station, to a polling station, or at every county in America allows you to take your ballot to the county board of election, where it can get verified and counted. And so, as you can see, I'm very concerned about mail-in balloting. I'm an old dude. I've got some lung problems. I can't vote in person on election day, but I will go in early voting with my mask, gloves, sanitizer, and probably 2 lawyers to make sure I can vote. So please,
All right.
take care of yourself.
All right. Thank you so much. Greg Palast. I've been joined this morning by Greg Palast, investigative journalist, author extraordinaire. You can check out his book, How Trump Stole 2020. It is out right now. Thank you so much for joining the AM Report with Alex Mahajer for Haps News, the network of Now. If you enjoyed this content, if you enjoyed this just journalism, please consider sponsoring it. Buy me a cup of coffee. I could sure use it. It's very early. Visit haps.tv/@Alex Mahajer, and we will see you live at 7:30 a.m. Pacific tomorrow morning and every weekday morning.